In the shadowy dance of Cold War espionage, the epic of the swaying spies unveils a thrilling tale of deception and danger that swayed the fate of nations. On this bridge, not a single bullet was fired, not a single gunshot rang out. But this was the place where the silent, tense, and most dangerous battles of the Cold War took place. This is the Glienicke Bridge, the place connecting West Berlin and Potsdam, and a historic site for spy exchanges between the two opposing blocs. People called it by a haunting name, the Bridge of Spies. On February 11, 1986, a strange scene unfolded on this bridge. Under a gray sky and freezing air, the two world superpowers held their breath and watched. From the east, a group of people stepped forward, led by a man and a woman. He, Carl Cucher, wore an elegant Brooks Brothers suit, walking with full confidence. She, Hana, his companion wife, draped herself in a luxurious fur coat, her face calm, but her eyes hiding countless secrets. They walked on the fragile line between freedom and captivity, between East and West, between past and future. They were not diplomats nor soldiers on the battlefield. They were the last super spies of a bygone era. Their story is more complex than any novel. From a poor and oppressed childhood in Czechoslovakia, they were recruited by communist intelligence, underwent grueling training, and were then sent to America with a perfect cover. Their mission: to infiltrate one of the most powerful organizations in the world, the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA. Their case shocked the entire intelligence community, for Carl Cucher accomplished what few spies ever did. He passed a series of psychological tests, lie detector tests, and rigorous interviews to become a CIA employee, providing critical, classified documents to the STB Czechoslovak Security Agency and the KGB Soviet intelligence. So why did a smart and courageous man like Carl Cucher have to walk across this bridge, pushed back to a regime he once opposed? This is a story of misplaced loyalty, of personal ambition that turned a patriot into a traitor, and of the price paid for a double life. We will together unveil the secrets of one of the most successful yet tragic spies of the Cold War. Let's explore the surprising journey of Carl and Hana Cucher. To not miss the fascinating stories to come, don't forget to press like and subscribe to the channel now. Carl Cucher's difficult childhood. To understand Carl Cucher, we must return to where he was born, the city of Bratislava, Czechoslovakia, at a time of great historical upheaval. Born before World War II, Carl's childhood was overshadowed by the darkness of racial discrimination and hatred. His family was Jewish, and in the context of the 1930s, that meant they always had to live in fear. Carl's mother, Mrs. Ira, an intelligent and resilient woman, endured terrifying days when Nazi Germany invaded Czechoslovakia. She had to hide in a small apartment, living a secret life to escape the pursuit of the Germans. Meanwhile, the pain was even greater when Carl's grandparents and two uncles were captured and brutally murdered in concentration camps. Carl grew up with stories of loss, of hatred, and of the injustice his family endured. This forged in him a keen sensitivity and a strong will to survive. From a young age, Carl displayed extraordinary intelligence. He learned English very early, a skill that would play a pivotal role in his future. But alongside that intelligence, Carl also showed a rebellious and defiant personality. During the time when Czechoslovakia was heavily influenced by communism, portraits of Stalin were hung everywhere as a symbol of power. But Carl resolutely refused to hang the leader's picture. This early defiance drew the attention of the local authorities, and Carl Cucher's name was recorded in the blacklist of the Czechoslovak Security Agency, STB. A difficult life shaped Karl into a decisive, ambitious, and unyielding man. He understood that to survive and rise, he had to use his intellect and cunning. The painful memories of his family and the injustices he witnessed created a powerful motivation for him to escape his fate. Those childhood years were not just a sad chapter in his life, but also a solid foundation for the complex and risky journey he would embark on later. Education and the start of espionage. Despite a childhood full of hardships, Carl Cucher never stopped learning. He demonstrated exceptional talent in academics, particularly in languages. He was fluent in Czech, English, French, and Russian, a rare and highly valuable skill set at the time. Carl passed the entrance exam to study at the prestigious Charles University, where he hoped to find a new path for his future. However, in the tense political climate of post-World War II Czechoslovakia, Carl's intelligence and independence became a risk. His life was closely monitored by the STB Czechoslovak Security Agency, especially after the 1949 event when a plot to overthrow the communist regime failed. Though not directly involved, Carl was watched due to his defiant nature. He lived with a black file always hanging over his head, an invisible sentence that prevented him from advancing in any field. To make a living, Carl worked as a tour guide, a job that allowed him to interact with foreigners and hone his language skills. It was this job that led him to a fateful meeting with Professor George Klein, an American professor. Their conversation went beyond tourist attractions. Professor Klein recognized Carl's intelligence and talent, opening a glimmer of hope, a path to America, to the free life he had always dreamed of. But Carl's American dream was not a one-way street. The STB, seeing his potential, approached him. With his name already on the blacklist and a bleak future, Carl faced a difficult choice. Would he agree to work for the regime he despised to gain freedom? Was cooperating with the CP the only way for him and Hana, his companion, to leave the Iron Curtain? In the end, Carl made a daring decision. He agreed to become a spy for the STB. Under a covert agreement, they would be sent to America as refugees, building a new life while awaiting orders. Hana Cucher, a girl from a communist supporting family, but yearning for a better life, was also part of this plan. This was Carl's first step into the world of espionage, a world of deception and secrets. He had no idea that this decision would change his life forever, transforming him from a smart but rebellious young man into a key figure in the most intense espionage war in history. Migration to America and the perfect cover. In 1965, under the direction of the Czechoslovak Security Agency, STB, Carl and Hana Cucher began a new adventurous chapter in their lives. They were sent to America under a perfect cover, a young couple seeking to escape the communist regime and find a free life in the land of opportunity. From Prague to Manhattan, they lived exactly as the refugees they pretended to be. Their new life began in New York. Carl, with his excellent language skills and broad knowledge, found a job at Radio Free Europe, a US-funded media organization that broadcast news and programs against communist regimes. This was an ideal cover, allowing him access to Western personnel and sensitive information from within. Meanwhile, Hana was no less impressive. Using her cunning and family connections, she built a diamond trading business. She dealt in small diamonds, gradually establishing a network of clients among New York's elite. This business not only provided them with a stable income, but also served as an ideal cover for covert activities. The small diamonds were used as a medium to exchange information or secret items, and meetings with clients became perfect opportunities to approach important figures. Both integrated seamlessly into American society. They spoke fluent English, dressed in modern styles, and lived a glamorous life in New York. They attended parties, social events, and befriended influential people. No one, not even their closest friends, suspected that this couple was not genuine refugees. They saw only a successful couple who had overcome hardship to achieve the American dream. But behind the glamour was a dangerous mission. Carl and Hana were not refugees, but sleeper agents waiting for orders from the STB. Every meeting, every conversation, every action was carefully calculated to serve their ultimate goal, penetrating deeper into the heart of America. Their ability to build a new life so smoothly demonstrated the meticulous preparation of the STB and their own ingenuity. Like an empty seashell, they lived a convincing but fabricated life. And this cover would soon open the door for them to access one of the Eastern Bloc's most critical intelligence targets, the Central Intelligence Agency. YT infiltration of the CIA and the pinnacle of espionage. In 1973, Carl Cucher achieved the unthinkable and unprecedented feat in the history of Czechoslovak intelligence. After years of living under the cover of a successful refugee, he was recruited by the CIA. The journey to become an employee of the Central Intelligence Agency was a formidable challenge. Carl had to pass a series of rigorous tests, from background checks and psychological evaluations to an in-depth lie detector test. With confidence and a meticulously prepared story, Carl passed them all, convincing the CIA that he was a valuable asset, a trustworthy individual. Once officially working for the CIA, Carl was tasked with translating classified documents primarily related to the intelligence activities of the Eastern Bloc. This position, seemingly just an ordinary office job, provided him with a treasure trove of invaluable information. Carl copied, memorized, and supplied classified documents to the STB Czechoslovak intelligence and the KGB Soviet intelligence. One of Carl's greatest successes was exposing the identity of Alexander Ogorodnik, a Western spy operating in Moscow. Thanks to the information Carl provided, the KGB discovered and arrested Ogorodnik, dealing a significant blow to Western intelligence operations. To support her husband, Hana also played a crucial role. Under the cover of a diamond trader, she became a courier carrying secret messages and documents during her international trips. Her work was not only a perfect cover, but also a secure and hard-to-detect communication channel. She traveled the world, to Bogota, to Moscow, carrying items worth thousands of times more than the diamond's value. The double life of Carl and Hana reached the peak of audacity and danger. Every passing day, they lived in fear of being exposed. Every step, every word was a gamble with their lives, not only theirs, but also the entire espionage network they served. But alongside the risks, they also felt they were at the height of power, holding secrets that could change the course of the silent war. They succeeded in deceiving one of the world's most sophisticated intelligence agencies, but they were unaware that cracks in their loyalty and suspicions had begun to emerge, threatening to end it all. Cracks in the risk of exposure. Despite reaching the pinnacle of his espionage career within Carl Cucher, conflicts grew increasingly intense. His loyalty to his homeland, Czechoslovakia, already scarred by World War II, was tested once again. In 1968, when Czechoslovak students and citizens rose up demanding freedom in the Prague Spring movement, the Soviet Union responded with a brutal invasion. Carl, living in America, witnessed this event with a broken heart. He began openly opposing the invasion, a dangerous act that went against the interests of those who had recruited him. This conflict created a serious rift in Carl's relationship with the Czechoslovak security agency, STB. He was no longer an obedient spy, but a man caught between patriotism and pressure from the East. He considered another bold option, becoming a double agent for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI. He believed that by cooperating with the U.S., he could atone for his mistakes and truly serve the ideals he had always dreamed of. However, Carl's offer was rejected by the FBI. They were suspicious of his motives and unwilling to take a risk with a spy who had a complex history. This decision placed Carl in an extremely dangerous position. He had openly defied the STB, but lacked the protection of the FBI. In 1976, suspicion reached its peak. The KGB Soviet intelligence began questioning Carl, suspecting he might be a double agent for the US. They summoned him to Prague for interrogation, an action that could end in a death sentence or a long prison term. In the tense interrogation, Carl faced immense pressure to confess and cooperate. He refused to confess on television, a daring decision that saved him from a tragic end. Afterward, he retained his freedom, but was cut off from all contact with his handlers in the Eastern Bloc. Carl Cucher's life was caught on the fragile line between life and death. He had lost the trust of both sides, suspected by the KGB and rejected by the FBI. It seemed his espionage career had ended, but the truth was quite the opposite. A new surprising chapter was about to begin, and this time he would face an unavoidable confrontation. A prisoner exchange on the Glienicke Bridge. After years of suspicion and covert surveillance, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, finally gathered enough evidence of Carl and Hana Cucher's espionage activities. The FBI monitored their every move, from secret meetings to encrypted messages. In 1984, the net closed in. Carl and Hana were arrested, and their double life was finally exposed. However, the evidence collected was not sufficient to prosecute them in court and ensure a harsh sentence. The FBI faced a difficult choice. Instead of taking the case to court, they offered a deal. If Carl and Hana confessed, they would be exchanged for a prominent Western prisoner held in the Eastern Bloc. Carl Cucher, a man who had lived in fear and been cut off from contact, accepted the deal. He knew this was his only chance to escape imprisonment and return to his homeland. On February 11, 1986, on the Glienicke Bridge, one of the most famous prisoner exchanges in history took place. The scene was as dramatic as a movie. From the east, a group of people stepped forward, led by a prominent Soviet prisoner, Anatoly Sharansky, later known as Nathan Sharansky. From the west, two mysterious figures walked calmly. They were Carl and Hana Cucher. Carl wore a dark blue suit, Hana in a luxurious white mink coat. Under the scrutinizing eyes of the press and agents, they walked with confidence. That calm exterior hid a complex truth. They were not victims, but traitors. The two exchanged a cold glance with those who had just apprehended them, then continued walking, leaving behind the American dream and the secrets of an era. This moment marked the end of a life filled with deception. Carl and Hana had overcome all difficulties to reach America, lived a perfect life, undercover, infiltrated one of the most powerful intelligence agencies, and finally returned to their homeland in a dramatic exchange. They were the final pawns in a grand chess game, and on that bridge, the game officially ended. Conclusion. The legacy of the Cuchers and historical lessons. On the Glienicke Bridge, Carl and Hana Cucher walked away, leaving behind all secrets and years of living undercover. They returned to Prague welcomed by the Czechoslovak authorities as heroes as those who had sacrificed for the country. But that glory lasted only a fleeting moment. When the Iron Curtain fell in 1989 and the Soviet Union collapsed, the world changed. The regime they had served ceased to exist, and their story was quickly forgotten. Carl and Hana lived a quiet life in Prague. Their lives no longer involved espionage missions, secrets, or adventurous trips. They were merely shadows of a bygone era. Carl in particular lived with deep regret. He had devoted his entire life to espionage, sacrificing his career, family, and even his loyalty, only to serve an ideal that crumbled. He wondered whether what he had done had any meaning or was merely a wasted life. The legacy of Carl and Hana Cucher is complex and contradictory. On one hand, they are recognized as brilliant super spies who succeeded in infiltrating the CIA, a rare feat. Their story demonstrated the sophistication and effectiveness of the Eastern Bloc's intelligence network. On the other hand, they were also victims of the very war they participated in. They lost their homeland, their identity, and ultimately their purpose in life when the world changed. Their story leaves us with many important historical lessons. It is a lesson about loyalty, whether loyalty to a regime is more important than loyalty to homeland and people. It is a lesson about ambition, whether pursuing a personal goal is worth sacrificing everything. And it is a lesson about the cost of espionage. A double life may bring power and secrets, but also takes away peace, happiness, and identity. Carl and Hana Cucher were once central figures in one of the greatest dramas of the 20th century. But when the play ended, they were merely actors stepping off the stage, leaving behind their roles and secrets that no longer mattered. Their story is a reminder that in history, individuals can change destinies, but ultimately, they are only a small part of a much grander historical flow. Please leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Do you think Carl Cucher was a hero or a traitor? And in your opinion, what is the greatest lesson from his story?